Hi everyone, Michael Paul here. Today I'm going to explain the next experiment in our Beneath Our Feet science series. But before I do that, I'm going to do a demonstration with this empty fish tank. Here I've got some soil. In here I've got some small rocks. And in here I've got some larger rocks. So I'm going to set a demonstration in here, and then I'm going to ask you a question for you to think about. So I've put in the tank, the bottom part is the soil, that's on the bottom. The next layer is small rocks, and then the bigger rocks are here on the top. So we've got soil, small rocks, large rocks. And so here's the next situation. I'm going to put the rocks in first. So all the big rocks go in first. Then the smaller rocks on top. And now the soil on the bottom, on top of that. So this time I've got rocks on the bottom, soil on top. So girls and boys, now we come to the question that I want to ask you. Our Earth, the top of our Earth, what is it like? Is it like soil underneath with rocks on top? Or is it rocks underneath with soil on top? Have a conversation with your parents. If you decided that it was rocks on the bottom and soil on top, you're correct. That is the way it exists in our world. Now, for our experiment today, we're going to use this soil and we're going to use these rocks, and we're going to make a model and simulate what happens when there is erosion. So, I'll show you the things that you need for the experiment. So in this experiment, we're going to model or simulate the effect of erosion on soil and rocks. So to do that, you're going to need some kind of a tray. Now, I'm using this big plastic one that's come from a stacker box. But if you haven't got a big tray like that, maybe you can get a cardboard box, cut off the top of it, so you've got the bottom part, and get some aluminium foil. Put the aluminium foil into the cardboard box, then put your soil and rocks on top of the foil, because we're going to put water and run water through the sample, and you don't want the water to ruin the cardboard box, so the foil will keep that dry. Okay? So now I'm ready to prepare my experiment. I've got my tray, I've put the rocks and I've put the soil on top of the tray. Now I'm just going to put a few things in to kind of simulate kind of landscape. I've got some little bits out of a rosemary bush here, so these are going to be like trees, like a few of those around the place. I've got some wooden blocks which I'm going to put in. They look a little bit like houses. Scatter them around a bit. And I've got some Unifix blocks. They can be other things. Put them in the landscape there. Alright, and now that is prepared, ready for us to run the water through and see what happens when the water rushes through our landscape. Right, as you can see, I've now put my model here on the grass so that when I run the water down the model, it's going to flow down and go out onto the grass, not on the concrete. So I'll just grab my water. As you can see, the water is not running too hard, it's just a nice steady flow. So I'm going to start putting it up this end and running it down through my model.
And I might leave that on for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half.
So my model's had a minute of water flowing through it. I'm just looking at it now. A lot of this area where the water was hard, the stones and the soil have been pushed back. I can see some of the Unifix blocks have been knocked over. This tree here has been knocked over. These plants have been pushed down. And down the bottom here, I can see lots of the soil has moved away. A lot of the rocks are still here, and there's some soil still up here. But a lot of the soil has moved down to the bottom part of the tray, down here. Which leads me to believe that the action of the water has washed it further down. The harder, heavier things like the rocks have stayed, but the lighter soil has been moved down through the tray. So kids, once you've got your landscape set up, take a before photo. Then after you've run the water through your landscape, like I have here, take an after photo. So kids, I hope you've enjoyed doing this experiment showing water erosion, and I've got a few questions that I'd like you to think about. What things have you learnt about water erosion from conducting this experiment? Okay. What are the things that you've learned about? Next, what elements does this experiment not take into account? So we've looked at the effect that water has on the soil and the rocks and the natural environment. What other things can affect the natural environment? Finally, how do you think the water erosion can be reduced? What ways can water erosion be reduced on a landscape? You may want to do some further investigation and research of your own about water erosion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.